All right, good morning. I'm proud to stand here today as the Chief of Detectives in the NYPD, and I truly believe I have the opportunity to work side by side with the greatest detectives in the world. Yesterday is another example that supports that statement. As of last night, investigators in the 106 Precinct Detective Squad and Queens South Homicide, under the supervision of Joe Kinney, who in a moment will go into details, were able to bring into custody the individual who we believe is responsible for the murder of Maria Fuentes. Ms. Fuentes is a defenseless 92-year-old woman minding her own business, walking down the street when she was brutally attacked. I want to reassure the public that one crime against a New Yorker or anyone who visits New York City, that this will not be tolerated. And a member of the NYPD, both patrol and detectives, will work vigilantly and swiftly to bring the perpetrator to justice. We are working closely with the Queens District Attorney, Melinda Katz, and her staff, and at this time, the charges are still pending. I would like to acknowledge Lieutenant Stephen Faber, to my right, from the 106 Squad, and Lieutenant Rich Rudolph from Queens South Homicide for their tireless pursuit in leading the investigation to identify and apprehend the perpetrator of this heinous crime. I especially want to recognize the lead investigators, Detective Joe Petrelli from the 106 Squad and Detective Mike Gain from Queens South Homicide. Now I'm going to pass it over to Chief Joe Kinney.
Thank you, boss. Good morning. I'm Deputy Chief Joseph Kenny. I'm the commanding officer of Detective Bureau, Queens South. On Monday, January 6, 2020, at approximately 0001 hours, so this is right after midnight, opposite of 103-26 127th Street, Richmond Hill, Queens, which is in the confines of the 106 Precinct, FDNY EMS units received a call for an aided female that was laying in the street. Upon arrival, EMS personnel discovered an injured and disoriented 92-year-old woman lying in the snow, laying in the street. EMS transported this female to Jamaica Hospital, where unfortunately she was pronounced dead at 02:35 hours. The deceased was identified as Maria Fuentes. Upon further investigation, including multiple video canvases in the vicinity of the incident, it was determined that there was an unknown male who approached the victim, Ms. Fuentes, from behind. There was some sort of physical contact between the two, between Mrs. Fuentes and this unknown male, causing them both to fall to the ground, where they landed behind a parked car. The perpetrator and the victim were out of view for approximately 4 to 5 minutes, where the subject suddenly reappears and runs northbound on 127th Street. Mrs. Fuentes remains on the ground. Eventually, the medical examiner informs detectives that an autopsy was performed on Ms. Fuentes on Tuesday, January 7th, 2020. The autopsy revealed that the victim suffered multiple injuries demonstrating intentional harm. Early this morning, thanks to the hard work of the 106 Detective Squad and of Queens South Homicide, working with the Queens District Attorney's Office, we apprehended this subject. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the community for their assistance in this investigation. In partnership with the NYPD, the community came forward with numerous tips and multiple sources of information that helped us bring this case to a conclusion. Thank you.
Can I take some questions?
Chief, what precisely were the injuries to Ms. Fuentes? Was it strangulation? Was it sex abuse? Was it some sort of battery?
Okay, so Tony, right now it's still in its preliminary stages of the investigation. We do have some contusions around her neck, as well as we do see some injuries around her private area. Any other questions? Rocco?
Chief, is it random, and did he explain his actions in any way?
So Rocco, we afforded him the opportunity to talk to us. I'll have Chief Joe Kinney talk about what was discussed inside that during that discussion.
During an interview of the subject, he places himself at the scene. I'm not going to get into detail what he told us about the encounter with him and the victim, but he does put himself at the scene. As far as other incidents in the area, we've consulted with other precincts, we've consulted with the special victims. At this time, we're certainly going to dig further to see if there are other further incidents, but as of this time, we think this is an isolated incident.
And Chief, was it unusual for her to be out at that time of night? Was she doing anything particular?
No, Ms. Fuentes was a fixture in the neighborhood of Richmond Hill. She was known on Liberty Avenue. She took strolls in the evening quite often. Like I said, a fixture in the neighborhood who will be missed.
Chief, was there any prior contact between the victim and the perpetrator at any point during that night or previously?
From what we believe at this time, Ms. Fuentes is walking by herself northbound on 127th Street, which is approximately 20 feet off of Liberty Avenue. If you're familiar with Liberty Avenue, it's a commercial strip filled with local nightlife and stores, a very commercial area. It appears that our subject follows her off of Liberty Avenue, and they have contact about 20 feet north of Liberty Avenue on 127th Street.
So they know each other previously?
Unknown at this time.
Is there any motive that's been discussed there?
Investigation still, like I said, this is days old. We may come up with a motive at some point, but not at this time.
Are the charges pending? Are you going to identify this person, or did I miss something?
Charges are pending. We're consulting with the Queens District Attorney, Melinda Katz.
Do we know anything about the subject, any priors on the subject, person of interest?
That'll come out later on. Like I said, it's ongoing. He was not a person of interest of anything we were looking at that time, but that'll come out further as we go along in the investigation.
Take a couple more.
Injuries around the private area, do you expect charges of sexual abuse nature?
That'll be the determination of the District Attorney.
So do you know if the person whom charges are against was charged with anything else in the past or have been arrested?
He does have a previous criminal history.
Do you have details on that criminal history?
I'm not willing to give those at this time.
Two more.
How old is the suspect, and does he live in that general area?
He's from Queens, and he's a male, 21 years old.
Chief, the circumstances under which you got him, was he picked up at his house, at his job, on the street?
We can disclose that later on in the investigation. I get you that information somewhere down the road.
So if you don't mind, it's still, a lot of things are still preliminary. We have to make sure we put all the investigative pieces together to make sure that we prosecute them correctly. So if you see a little reluctancy to share some things, that's the reason why.
Thank you.
Excuse me, can you respond about the village puncher that was released on bail, new bail term?